Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching the YourTown television program. My guest, Ihsan Rustem.
Hi, Mark.
And we're here at Hidden Valley in Carmel Valley, California. Ballare Carmel, a new dance company, Lillian Barbietto.
Yes.
And we're having fun.
We are. We're having the best time here. It's great to be working on location, let's call it,
Yeah.
where you sleep over there, you create over there, and you have fun over here. It's great.
So the name of the work, just don't end up in the pine cone, honey.
It is. It's a mouthful.
And you stumbled on this in Switzerland.
I did.
Let's talk a little bit about how the origins of this.
Okay, do we go right back to basics?
Yeah.
Okay, so I met Lillian, I would say about 4 years ago. We had, of course, been in touch before. It's a small community, the dance community. We all sort of know one another, and Lillian was running a company in Los Angeles at the time. She invited me over to give some workshops for their summer program, and we connected very well there. And when Lillian started Haven, she invited me to do a couple of online projects, which were just wonderful. And then I was very touched and honored when she asked me to participate in the first program for Ballare Carmel. And I jumped at the chance. When Lillian asks, you say yes. And then, of course, she proposed this wonderful man that she had met, Mark Baer. And our collaboration has begun from planting a seed of coming together, let's say. And when Lillian spoke about her new venture here in Carmel, I started doing some research and was fascinated by this area. I mean, it's a very special area. I'm embarrassed to say I knew very little about Carmel or Monterey or this region. And immediately just Googling the creativity here, the vibrancy, the arts culture, the jazz history, the people. And then, one thing led to the other. And then I started Googling some funny stories of the area and some historical hilarious rules. For example, if you want to wear high heels out on the street, you need to go to City Hall and get a permit. And I thought, oh, this is too funny not to use. So I decided very quickly that I wanted to be inspired by this area for the foundations of this work. And I guess small seeds have been planted, and that's where you and I have come in, because I would come to Lillian and say, look, I have this funny idea of, for example, taking the high heels, and let's check this with Mark, because Lillian's new in this region. I'm coming from Switzerland, from over the pond, and you're our, guy on the inside.
Here.
You're
Yeah.
our guy on the inside. So it's been great, like bouncing ideas off of one another.
So again, just for the audience, if you live here, you don't want to end up in the police log in the pine cone. People know what their neighbors did. They know who's got the highest water bill.
Right.
Dog barks. It's the last remnant of sort of small town life that when people come here, they find charming and endearing. When you end up in the pine cone, people know. I know who got a DUI. I know who did this, who did that. You know, so it's as a local joke. Please, just don't end up in the pine cone, honey.
Yeah.
If they're from here, they get it.
And this was a title. We were having a Zoom, the three of us.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
You, Lillian, and I. And Lillian was trying to explain to me what the pine cone is. And she said it in a way that I think, yes, Grant, her husband, was going out that night, and she was like, just don't end up in the pine cone, honey. And we were on this Zoom, and I was writing this down. I was like, Lillian, I think we just found our title.
Well, let's talk about how do you become, what's the journey from dancer to choreographer?
It's different for everybody, but for myself, I feel like actually I've been doing both as long as I've been dancing. So the first ever piece I made was, I was lucky enough, I grew up in London. I was fortunate enough to go to a school which had dance as part of the curriculum. Dance was offered as part of physical education. So we had to play football, I mean like British football, your soccer. I mean, I was really not very good at it. And we had to, in the winter months go play rugby in the mud. I was really not that interested. And then we danced and I thought, oh, this is brilliant, this is hilarious, this is wonderful. And I was fortunate in my school to go to a place which offered also dance just for males. We had extracurricular activities after school, kind of to get away from this stigma of, only women dance, and it's really not true. And we were encouraged immediately to create our own dances. So I was an 11-year-old kid and I was choreographing my own piece and learning how to dance, and it sort of evolved from there. And the school I went to, the Baer School in London, has a history of fostering creativity, of fostering choreographers. So it was an incredibly strong, traditional, technical foundation, the training we had, very strong ballet and contemporary. And I had the opportunity to create 10 works while I was at school from the age of 16 to 18. And then I was always lucky to be in dance companies which had a choreographic platform as part of the program. So we could choreograph on our colleagues and present this in front of people. And then sort of one thing evolved. So I stopped dancing in 2014 and I had created my own work in Portland, Oregon, where I'm the resident choreographer for the Northwest Dance Project in 2010. So there was a sort of a buffer period of 4 years where I started to create 4 companies while still being an employed dancer. And then the time was right to transition after 15 years of working as a professional dancer. So it was quite a natural progression for me.
So I look at your work, you have clean lines, you have clear gestures, but there's a fullness and a thickness to your work and a attention to detail. It's very lush, your work.
Okay.
How do you look at your kind of what's your trademark, your hallmark of your work? How would you think of it?
I think you've just touched on, if I hear how other people speak of my work, because of course one always views their own work perhaps differently, but yes, there is certainly a thickness to it. I was interested as a dancer myself with my own physicality of trying to break the concepts of borders, boundaries and limitations. I always strive to go further and to see how I could push my body beyond its own limits. So I'm very interested in that physicality and that physical approach. So it's quite bold. People say it's grounded, feels very earthy. I almost never jump. I almost never come off of the floor. And I loved partnering on stage. For me, doing a solo was very easy and almost sometimes boring, but being with another human and that sensitivity of merging 2 bodies to one, I was always fascinated by, and I was driven by that. I love to create duets. So I think it's quite fitting that I'm here creating in Carmel for the first introduction of the company, that I'm creating a duet for 2 wonderful dancers, Anthony and Natalie. And so I guess those are my trademarks, let's say. And then a little bit of quirkiness together with a bit of deeper artistic, I like to play with the audience.
You like, one of the things I've noticed in all of your pieces, you have a light touch. There's always a moment of, even in the darker pieces, you like a light touch. And then this piece, it's almost, I think of it almost like a souffle. We've been able to have a very light piece and then bits of unexpectedness in it, bits of thoughtfulness in it, trying to, and it's almost daring to have a light touch anymore.
It is, and I have to say you have influenced much of this piece. There's a beautiful thing, in case the audience are not completely aware, Mark, you've created the most incredible backdrops for this work, but not only the incredible backdrops, all of our conversations and the dramaturgy behind the work, and how you and I have bounced ideas to slowly find a point that we can sit on. The beautiful thing about collaborating with other artists is it takes you slightly out of your comfort zone, and then magic happens because you end up having a look which you would never have come to otherwise. Lillian said something wonderful the other day. She said, well, this is a different look for you, isn't it? And that is truly because of the collaboration between the 3 of us. And you've created these beautiful, vibrant colorful works, but very powerful and provocative works. And there's a playfulness to the words and the phrases you use on the canvas. Some of it has a slightly edgy touch. Some of it is hilarious. Some of it is might be nonsensical to the viewer, but makes absolute sense for us. And I like your playful touch has influenced my playful touch, and I feel like it's a give and take.
It's funny, we get out of ourselves to become more of ourselves.
There you go. That's a great way to put it.
Geez, this is what I would have liked to have done. It's really, and that is wonderful, to be out of your own head.
Totally.
Is such a vacation.
Yeah.
And it's been so much fun. And one of the interesting things about this piece is, okay, we're going to do it Carmel-based, Carmel history, Carmel, use Carmel as a place, as kind of a, everything that's happening in the bigger world is happening here.
Right.
But we also, instead of starting with something Carmel-y, our touch point was the 1999 Savage Beauty show with Alexander McQueen.
Yeah.
And so we started from a place that was totally nonsensical to what we were doing.
Yeah.
And had we not started at that point, I don't know if we would have been able to make it. We would have never been able to transcend our situation here.
Right.
It would have been too on the money, too on the point, and too redundant of what we think we already know.
Yeah. Maybe again to share with the viewers.
Yes.
In researching different approaches for this work, we came across a wonderful video from a fashion, it's hard to call it a fashion show, let's say a presentation, because his shows were
Met,
really
so yeah, I mean, this
a
was
work of art.
It was
from Alexander McQueen presenting a very simple idea with a female in a beautiful dress and these two robots. And at first she's somewhat scared by these creatures, and then suddenly this paint comes flying out of these machines and creates another form of art on these white dresses. And we thought, wouldn't it be great to pay homage to this image and find a way to feed this idea in? And then you came up with Thinko. Maybe you want to share a little bit about.
Thinko was a Westinghouse robot from the 50s, so he's the perfect modernist image. And one of the things about Carmel that I think we both felt about this is past and present live at once.
Right.
Because the physical beauty still looks like it did 50 years ago. The place still remains, and the ghosts are very alive. And we talk about Errol Gardner. People know who Errol Gardner is, but the Concert by the Sea. And it happened in old Monterey a long time ago. The nostalgia and the nostalgia is very much part of the place, part of the reason people come here for that dream, to have their own fantasy here. So the ghosts live. So having Salvador Dali was here, so surrealism was a very natural mix for us. And so McQueen, the ghost of McQueen coming here feels perfectly fitting. He'd show up, Thinko would show up. And again, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
And you always have there is that humanity in all your work that seems very conscious, and that heart, you have deep heart in your work. And I don't know, it transcends our silliness.
Right. When something has substance, you're able to push the silly a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there was something, we spoke a lot about how we can bring this idea of Thinko in, and this thing of savage beauty, I think the way we're using it in the work is sometimes we judge a book by its cover. Sometimes because of a certain way someone may look, we can be skeptical, or there's this somehow untrust, there's this fear of things we don't know, right? So I guess the way we've approached our savage beauty is that our character of Thinko comes in almost like a robotic dog, and there's a moment that he's as curious by the solo, by Anthony's solo, by this beautiful man who is feeling his inner self in this moment. And there's this curiosity. And then as he sees Thinko, there's a fear, almost as if there's a trust element. You know, they've never seen from either side something that looks like this, someone who looks like that. And I think we're going a little deeper than that. How can you create this trust? And there's this gentle unraveling of layers, and bit by bit you feel this love, and there's a way that they see into each other's soul. And I guess the essence of that is, where does the heart lie? You know, how we all share one thing in common, right? And it's this beautiful heart and soul. So I guess we're exploring those themes and allowing them to live throughout the piece.
So, you know, again, what Thinko, I've been working with this idea, with this character for a while, and what does a robot want? Well, I want to be loved till I tingle. I want every sensation. I want to be loved. For me, watching what the dancers could do, and the eloquence of expression, and the definition of, you know, being able to really, the complexity of the expression was enlightening.
Oh, super.
And I want to talk about Ballare for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Because Ballare was, again, something that everybody thinks they've seen. Everybody thinks that they know what it is. It was kind of hackneyed. You brought it out of mothballs, which is risky.
I had put it off for a long time.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. When I was 16 years old, I had an incredible opportunity to appear as a dancer in Maurice Béjar's Bolero. It's a very well-known choreographer. And it's a piece which has 40 men around a large table, and the table has one solo. Sometimes it's by a female, sometimes it's by a male. I had the great honor to do these performances with Sylvie Guillem, who in my opinion was at that time, and in my opinion, she was the best ballerina in the world. And she is the best ballerina for me. So I remember doing these performances, and it's this 16-minute piece of music which has this slight crescendo, and it repeats and it repeats, and it gets grander and grander. And I remember that feeling. I remember dancing it. I remember feeling the energy from the audience. I remember this brilliant eruption at the end, and I thought, ooh, one day I want to tackle this work. And it took me a long time. I felt not ready as a choreographer, and then, you know, after many pieces, I thought, okay, now's the time. And I created the piece in 2016, I think, in Portland, again for the Northwest Dance Project, with a group of dancers that I knew very, very well. And I thought, okay, now's the time. And I tackled it in my way, with a little bit of quirk, a lot of gusto, incredibly fast, incredibly challenging.
So, any last thoughts while we're here?
I'm wearing a Mark Baer original. This gives a little hint of some of the motifs in our set. Do you want to say anything about your set?
This started with the Fibonacci code. That's why we have the sacred spirals. But then I was reading Little Stars and Big Stars blowing through the night, and I saw it in our background. I thought, those are little stars and big stars blowing through the night, which is, and you know, Thinko's looking at the sky, and he says, "The world owes me a loving."
Nice.
And I thought that's a nice place for us in Carmel, and it happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Old Monterey. I'm with Ihsan Rustem. You're watching the YourTown television program, and I believe that's enough.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure.
We'll see how it goes.
All right.
Okay.